In this tutorial, we're going to go over InDesign, Classroom in a Book, Chapter 11, all about creating tables. You'll see here we've got a styled table with some photos, and we're going to work on how to create that. Let's go ahead and do a file open. Go grab your start file for Chapter 11 and say open. You're going to see we get a general bunch of information here. It's not styled, but we're going to play with it. So one of the first things we want to do is just see how do you create a table. So before we get started, let's do a file save as and call this 011 tables and save. So one of the first things we can do is just see how do you create a table at all. So let's go up to table and let's do create table, which is at the very top. And you'll see you get these ideas. What do you want? You want a 4x4? What style do you want? You can just say OK. If you click within a text frame, it'll automatically build that table for you and you can fill in accordingly. For us, we've already got all of this text pre-provided that we need to put in, so we don't want to have to cut and paste. So let's go ahead and do a Control Z and undo what we just made and convert our text to a table instead. So you'll see that we've got text here that has got hidden characters. It's got these little tab markers between. If you can't see that, go up here, turn your hidden characters on. Do a Control Plus so you can see a little bit more. So we can see that this is tab separated already. So we are telling computer wherever you see this tab marker that we want you to move that into another cell. So in order to do that, we need to convert this text into a table. So the first thing we're going to do is click in here with our text tool. I'm going to do Control A and select all of my text. I'm going to go Table and convert text to table. If you've done this in Word at all, it's relatively straightforward. We want our separator to be a tab. We want it to be based on paragraphs, so change rows there, and no table style, and say OK. So now it's gone ahead and converted what we've got into a table itself, which makes life a little bit easier. Alright, so what are we going to do now? We need to be able to change, delete, move things around. So one of the first things we want to do is be able to add a row. So let's go here to this enrichment course with our text tool. Hit right below. If you go right below enrichment course above art, you're going to get a arrow. Go ahead and click that. So we select art. And let's go ahead table. And we want to go to insert. And we want to put a row. We want to put one row above what I have right now and say OK. And in there, let's go ahead and put the words department and number. I'm going to hit tab, course name, and credit. So that's relatively straightforward. So now it's kind of boring. We want it to actually match. So let's go ahead and select that row. And go into our window, come into our type and our styles. We want to make sure we grab our paragraph styles, which are already set up for us. And if we look under table styles, we have one called table head, table column heads, table body. We want to go ahead and grab table column heads. So it's already set up so it will match that other one as well. So that's pretty cool. So what else can we do? We need to add another column over here to the end. So we're going to click in the cell that says credit or credits. We can make it credits. And let's go table. And we want insert. And this time we want column. It's going to say how many columns. We want to go ahead and do one column. And we want to put it to the right of the column that we're in right now. So say OK. But right now that goes over our page. That's okay. We're going to fix it. Let's go ahead and do a Control S and save what we've got so far. So you'll see here we've got an extra row. I'm going to go ahead and collapse that style for now that I want to get rid of. So what I can do is with my text tool, highlight that row, and let's go table, and let's go down here to delete and tell it to delete the row. So relatively straightforward. Let's do a save on that one. Alright, so now we can rearrange these. We want math to be under fashion. So I'm going to put these in alphabetical order. So what I can do is we've got our row selected. I can take and drag it so I get the blue line, and I can move it just like you do with moving panels and docks around. You can move your rows around. So let's go ahead and adjust the size of our widths of our columns. If you go over the edges, you can see you can change the width of those columns. So let's go ahead and change the first one to about 2.5. So notice I'm measuring that on my ruler here. Let's take the number column to 3.125. Let's take course name over to 5.25. Credits to 6.25. And our blank one over to 7.75. So it brings it into the margin. So now our table is looking a lot better. If you hit W, you can see how you're doing so far. Gets rid of all those hidden characters, things if you don't want to see them. You can also turn hidden characters off up here if you don't want to pay attention to those. Let's do a Control S and save what we've got so far. Alright, so now we want to make sure our table's got a little bit more space to it. So we want to go ahead and adjust kind of that row height. So let's go to Window, come down here to Type and Tables, and grab our table palette. And within here, we've got quite a few options. Let's go ahead anywhere within our table. Let's go ahead and in our table, let's go Table, Select, and we don't have anything selected, so let's go ahead and make sure we're on our text tool. Table, Select. We want to select the entire table because we want to make changes to the whole thing. We're going to come over here to our table panel, and you see we've got information here about how much do you want to create that inset space. So we're going to change them all at the same time and change this to 0.125. So you see now we've got that padding around the entire thing. And we can go ahead and center and choose it to align. So we align center in the middle of all of those things for us. And that looks a lot nicer. Let's do a Control S for that. Now if we look up here, enrichment courses, we need to have those cells merged. So we don't want it to look like it's in multiple cells. So let's go ahead and select it with our text tool. Let's go up to Table, come down here to Merge Cells. And so now we've got just one single cell instead of multiple cells. And let's do a Control S. So if we look at our sample, we see that every other one of these lines is filled in with a color. That's kind of a pain. We can make it do that for us. So let's go ahead, grab our text tool, go in our type. Let's go to Table. Let's come here to Table Options, and we want Table Setup. And here we've got to look here at fills. We want alternating pattern. We want every other row. And if you hit preview, you can see what it's going to be doing. So if you didn't want black, you could change it to another color. You've got a lot of different options. I'm going to go ahead and leave it on black. So instead of having to fill it, because what happens if you do that by hand? If you do that by hand, as you add and delete rows, you're going to have to go in and adjust all the color and background, which is not really something you want to have to do. So now everyone's got a gray background. Let's go ahead and say OK. So let's add some color to some cells. Let's go ahead and grab our type tool, go up to this enrichment courses up here. And right now, since we have the gray, it got kind of black. Can't really see it too well. So let's grab our arrow and select that cell. Let's go to Window, come down here to Color, grab our swatches. In swatches, we've got a choice called dark green. And I wanted to grab that tint and run it all the way up to 100. So it's really, really dark. And I'm going to select out, deselect it, and now I've got a nice dark green. My gray shows up much better. I'm going to do a Control S and save that. So now we want to adjust the stroke, which remember, stroke is the frame around all the different items. So we can do that in a couple different ways. Let's go ahead and grab our type tool, click in our cell. Let's go to Table, Select, and we want to select the whole table. And we're going to get this option right here, which is what's called a proxy preview. Now you have to pay close attention. You can click on different lines within this preview and turn them light blue, and that will be what is affected. So we want to go ahead and remove all the lines that go on, because we've got the different colors, we don't need these extra lines above department and right above art so that outline each of those cells. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of those. So we're going to make sure we've got the blue turned on for the top, the middle, the bottom, but not the sides. We want the sides turned off. So make sure those are not blue. And we're going to change this to 0. And see, now we've gotten rid of all of those lines that go in between, but we've left the ones that go up and down. So make sure you're paying attention on that proxy preview as to what you're playing with. Alright, so now let's go ahead and add some table borders. Let's grab our type tool, click in here, let's click on our cell, table, select table, and we want to come down here to table, table options, table setup. Make sure you've got the preview turned on if you don't already. It makes it a lot easier to figure out what you're doing. And over here in table border, let's go ahead and add a table border that's about 0.5. And you can see now we're adding it to the whole thing. And say OK. I'm going to deselect all, select out. You can do a control, edit, deselect. I'm going to hit W so I can kind of see what I've got going so far. I can see I've got my border around, so it's a little bit easier to see. So now, if you look at the original, we want to add some graphics to these cells. There's a few different ways we can do this. So let's go ahead and go over to the cell over here by art. We're going to do this art one. So let's go over here by this art and click into that cell. Let's do table. Let's do select, and we want to do the cell. Then we want to go to table, and we want to convert that cell to a graphic cell. So we know that it's now going to have a picture as well. And let's go ahead and you can go table, we can go cell options, and we want to see what our options are for graphics. And it gives us all the information about that cell itself. So I'm not going to worry too much about it. If you wanted to make it so it didn't touch the edges, you could add some inset space, a few things before you put the images in. Let's go say OK. Alright, so let's go ahead and do the same thing for this baking one. And let's go to window. Let's grab our type and tables. Go here, come down to table. So of course there's more than one way to do things. Go ahead and grab your hamburger menu, and right here you've got convert cell to graphic cell. So as you can see now, you've got a box to put, a frame to put an object into. So let's go ahead and go back up to art with our selection tool, and let's do a file place. And within file place, let's go to our one that says street art and say open. Now notice that it's only going to fill the size of that cell. We want it to actually show. So we're going to go to object. We're going to come down here to fitting, and we want to fit frame to content. So now it's going to expand that cell so it will fit there. Let's come down here to baking. Let's do a file place. And let's go ahead and grab bake this time. Open. And instead of going to the object fitting, we can do a right click. We can do fitting. And you can still have that fit content to frame or fit frame to content as well. So of course there's 10 different ways to do things. So we still want to add some images to fashion and recreation. So another way we can do this is to go file and place. Let's go ahead and grab fashion and kite. I'm going to hit fashion, I'm going to hit shift, I'm going to grab kite, so I grab them both at once and I get that loaded cursor. So you can see I've got my loaded cursor. I'm going to go ahead and click into fashion and click the first one and click into recreation and put my kite in. I can go up here to my toolbar at the top and notice you've got a fit frame to content here as well. So there's quite a few different ways to make that fit into that box that you want to do. Let's go ahead and do a Control S and save what we've got so far. Now we can also have art and text in the same box. So let's go grab this little leaf with our selection tool, do an edit cut, or just do, let's do a cut. And let's come here to art with our text tool. Come in after art, hit the space, and let's do a Control V to paste it in. And we want to add it after baking as well to let people know that these classes are off campus. So you can have both in a single cell. Let's do a Control S and save what we've got so far. Alright, so let's go ahead and create what's called a header row. We want to create a header row so that if we decide to take this on a multiple pages, we do not have to repeat these elements on every single page. So let's go ahead and create a header row. Let's grab our text tool and select these top 2 rows. Then let's go ahead and do table. And we want convert our table. We want convert rows down here, and we want it to header. So now when we go onto multiple pages, it will automatically put those elements in there. So what am I talking about? Let's make it happen. Let's go to recreation. Let's go to table. Let's do insert. Let's do row. And let's do four rows below this page and say OK. So now I've bounced onto another page with extra rows. But you see, because I had that header set up, it automatically put that information in for me. So I didn't have to worry about trying to create depending on how many pages I've got, which is awesome. Let's do a Control S and save that. Now we can create things like styles. So if we wanted to use this enrichment course as a style for something else, we can create it. So let's go ahead and click on our type in our enrichment courses. Let's go Window, come down here to Styles, and let's go Table Styles. And we want to create a table style, and we want to create a table that looks pretty much like this that we have now. So let's go ahead and do New Table Style, so it looks like our little post-it note. Let's double click on Table Style, and we're going to call this Catalog Table. So now we've got that all set together. So next time, if we want to go onto another page, I'm going to go here. Let's go into page 2. Let's do a new page. I can now do table, create table, and table style I could do catalog table and say OK and click, and it's automatically going to put that table style there in for me. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time, which is really nice. Alright, so what else can we do? Well, maybe we really like the way enrichment courses works, and we want to create a style for that as well. So let's go ahead and create a table head style. So that's called a cell style. Let's grab our text tool, hit in our enrichment courses. Oh, we got to do it on the original. Enrichment courses. And let's go to Window. We're going to come here to Styles, Table Styles. This time we want what's called a cell style, and we want to create a new cell style. So let's double click on that cell style we just made, and let's call it Table Head, Header, and the paragraph style would be Table Head, and say OK. So that way when we apply that going forward, we have that already taken care of. We can change it on the fly. It makes life a whole lot easier. So establish and create those styles as you go. So that's pretty much all you need to do for this one. Let's go ahead and do a Control minus, zoom out, and do a W for window. I'm going to switch back to my selection tool so I can kind of see what it looks like with all my different things that I've created. So you'll be creating pages like this if you do things like classified ads. If you do things like pages with grids, you might want to be creating pages that have a lot of structure to them. It's a lot easier to create one single table than it is to try and line up a whole bunch of individual text boxes. That's all for this one.